welcome in everybody. We are here for our May Innovation Ecosystem call through FL Fast. And so feel free to put questions throughout this session in the chat. Let us know where in the state you're calling from. If you're from Orlando, Miami, Tallahassee, anywhere in between, chat, feel free to use that as much as you can during today's session. So we have some great speakers. I'm going to kick us off just to share a little bit about FL Fast and what we do with the program. So we're funded through the Small Business Administration as part of, and really to promote resources, awareness, and kind of responsiveness for SBIR and STTR funding for entrepreneurs throughout the state of Florida. So we are the One FAST Center, which is the Federal and State Technology Partnership Program designated by the SBA. So I'll give you just a real quick kind of stage setting, a quick intro, then we'll get right to our amazing speakers for the month. So today we're going to hear from Regina Thompson at FAU and Jessica Forbes with the National Institute for Neurological Disorders and Stroke, their SBIR STTR program, to learn more about some of the opportunities available there. At the end, I actually have a lot of announcements and events and some things coming up that everyone should be aware of. If we run long on the session, I'll put a link to all of those in the chat, and you'll have a recording for the session. You'll have the slides, and we'll make sure you get all of those as we go. So like I said, feel free to use the chat. I think I see some folks in here. Boca, Orlando. Yeah, it's awesome. We have people engaged throughout the state, and please invite colleagues to this call moving forward. A quick note about FAST and what we do. So our goal is to provide outreach, technical assistance, and financial support targeted around getting more funding, more R&D funding to entrepreneurs throughout the state, and better connections with the ecosystems around the state. That's the outreach arm of FAST. This call is a big part of that. It's not just connecting entrepreneurs, it's connecting all of us that work with entrepreneurs and making sure we're have a bit of a shared language, some shared resources, and an understanding of how to support companies as we all move forward. So this call is a big part of outreach. We provide technical assistance for companies going through the SBIR STTR program. We have webinars. We have some particular programs that are agency specific. So we're developing more resources there and on our site. And so if you're on this call, you'll receive those as those are announced and posted. And then financial support through the Corridors and GRP program. If there's a company within Central Florida that's doing business with doing sponsored research with a university faculty, there's some matching funding available to increase that university scope of work. And that includes for SBIR and STTR awards. So these are the high-level details. We have more info on the website. I'm happy to answer questions about any of that. For the purposes of today's call, this is my last slide before I hand it over to Regina. It's just we want to get everyone in the state connected, so you can hear from peers, more of an opportunity to connect and learn about resources available in the state or federally or even more locally. We record all of these sessions, the slides, the links are all available. I'm happy to share all that, and you'll get that within a couple of days after this call. And beyond SBIR, we just want to make sure everyone is aware and kind of capturing some of these new opportunities that are coming out for your programs, because there are a lot of opportunities for programs and for entrepreneurs. So just raising that awareness and connectedness is one of our big goals. So, and if you are interested in being a speaker on this call in the future, please send me an email, let me know. We're more than happy to promote and share as many folks as we can on the call. So with that, I will hand it over to Regina Thompson at FAU, the Assistant Director for Strategic Economic Initiatives, and she's going to talk about some of the awesome programs we have for supporting innovation at FAU. Regina.
Thank you, Jack. My headshot is always the best look. Sometimes I can't replicate the hair, but it's me. So my name is Regina, and I have a couple of my amazing colleagues on the call as well with me today, Jessica and Sandra. But I'm going to go ahead and showcase what we have going on at FAU, and also to learn from others and maybe pick brains after this on like what you do and what are some best practices perhaps to strengthen ours as well. So we have our innovation and business development branch. So we work together with different units for entrepreneurial programming, initiatives, workshops, and just growth at any stage in the process for entrepreneurs. So our mission, we support student ideation, faculty research innovations, licensing and commercialization, and business development in our region. And what's unique about us is that we're under a division of research. So we're not tied to the College of Business or a specific college on campus, which a lot of people have found that to be unique when we present this, that we're able to kind of be neutral and bring in different parties within our university system to make this work. So here is a visual of the entire pipeline. So you can start at the imagine phase and continue forward and through all the way into the expansion phase, or you can use this kind of in an a la carte fashion. Let's say you need a little bit from here and a little bit from there. So our participants are able to participate in a modular fashion or also a la carte. So we have something for any stage and for different target audiences. As I mentioned, student, faculty, but also community members and community entrepreneurs. So I'm going to start with a quick overview of the Imagine phase. So what that entails is most of the programs that I directly manage. This one is a student-centric. It's FAU WAVE. It's an applied research and entrepreneurial competition. It's unique in the sense that it provides seed funding for students to start prototyping and development. So we're able to give them some seed funding to bring a concept to reality or get it closer to reality and start designing it and seeing if this is an actual feasible thing that they can create, a product or a service, a social entrepreneurship piece. Doesn't matter the student major, discipline, or what college they're from within our university. We take all different disciplines, all different projects. They can be a freshman, they can be a sophomore. The idea is that they have an innovation that we could see continuing into our pipeline of other programs as they build and grow, and we can see that potential in them. What's great, we have a picture here, Paris, one example. She has never taken a business class before. She was actually a neuroscience major. She's going to pursue her master's in a university in Canada to continue her microbiology and trying to understand the effects of the skin. She created an innovation that is a hand sanitizing capsule. And the only reason she participated is because, you know, through our marketing and through our outreach and class presentations, she thought, well, maybe I could try this, because this is kind of like getting your feet wet. I like to say that FAU WAVE is the starter point a lot for our students who are not in business. Obviously, business is welcome as well. But those students who are engineers or scientists, they may not know how to go to the next level with their applied research projects. So she's an example of someone who really dug in and ended up taking part in all of our programs and continuing forward to develop this, create a provisional patent and see what her potential customer base would be. And she has no business background, but she was able to absorb everything throughout the process and actually win our award, as well as MuniMod, which is a massive civic innovation award a couple years back. So that's just an example of how we can affect other disciplines and other students who may not otherwise have the access to business classes. So their projects are judged on innovation and feasibility, their market potential. They have certain deliverables that they have to meet. It is a fall to spring extracurricular program, I should add. So this is not for credit. However, a student can gain a credit depending on the hours that they put in. And then they compete for the final $2,000 Dr. Eric H. Shaw FAU WAVE Excellence and Innovation Award that culminates into an award ceremony. Next step would be in the process, let's say they went through WAVE or didn't go through WAVE, but they're a faculty or student researcher at our university, and they want to understand what their product market fit is, or be able to have that language on their market and their customer within those SBIR and STTR grants. A lot of you on the call are familiar with the I-Core program. So we are one of the sites within Florida. I know USF and UCF are the other two as well, as NSF kind of restructures their I-Core grant. This is a site that we have had for about 4 years now. So we're running cohorts actively, and we're trying to help that faculty researcher get their innovation out of the lab and understand who are they affecting and what problem are they solving, and how can we get you to that next level and get you that R&D funding, and then get you into nationals to compete. And also our end goal for all of this, for any entrepreneurs, to benefit society and trying to solve a problem for someone who needs it. So we actively run the NSF I-Core program as well. And some of these programs act as prerequisites into our Tech Accelerator, Tech Runway, which I'll touch upon in a bit. So we realized the NSF I-Core program and its methodology was incredibly invaluable, not just to the faculty and to the students, to understand how to formulate, their value proposition and what different aspects their research could contain or what avenues they could go into. But it's also valuable for entrepreneurs, even serial entrepreneurs. So we decided, if there's a way that we can bring this to the external community, using this public methodology, but repackaging it for those who already know business, but would like to explore a different customer segment or a different part of the business model canvas, we created the market validation workshop. So this is our external facing workshop for those who do not qualify for I-Corps because they are not institution, academic researchers or anything of that nature, but they're wanting to grow, build their business or validate a certain market. They're able now to take this methodology and gain that academic knowledge just like anybody else. So we have this program as part of the prerequisite into our Tech Runway Accelerator, and we run this about 3 times a year in our local regional offices.
Regina,
yes.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
This program, is this a 1-day program, a 3-day workshop? How long is the program?
That's a great question. It's definitely flexible, but the way we run it right now, it's a 2-day workshop. 1 day is in person, the other day is virtual. Now, I'm a big proponent of in-person because of the hands-on activities and exercises that we have. There's a lot of paper and pen. I know, call me old-fashioned, but that's how a lot of the things you retain are because you have that muscle memory. So we have the 1-day in-person workshop, 2.5 hours. The second kickoff day is just presentations, and that depends on the size of the cohort. It's usually about 2 hours. Then it runs, and once again, that's also flexible. It can run anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 weeks, depending on the total number of interviews they need to conduct and how much time they need to do that. And then it culminates into what they have learned and where they're at. So
You say I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
You said the interviews, are these the interviews in regards to validating their market needs?
Absolutely. And it could be any part of the canvas. I have had entrepreneurs who already have revenue and already have a customer segment, but they want to validate maybe a potential partner or a potential distribution channel or potential resource or cost structure. So they will go ahead and do those interviews based on what they want to validate within their business model canvas. So it's not just restricted to customer segments. And there's also other entrepreneurs who want to try a different customer segment. So let's say they have revenue here, but how can they scale up? They were thinking about going to this one, but they're not quite sure. So this is able to apply in those case scenarios.
Last question, I promise.
Okay. We might have to have a one-on-one, Joseph.
Yeah. Who facilitates the workshop?
Myself and a group of mentors. So we have entrepreneurs and business mentors that have industry expertise. We co-instruct. So we feed off of each other, and there's 2 of us that always conduct this. It also requires some, check-ins. So this is something that we have as a copywritten program that we're able actually to provide to the public. So even if you're not in our region, we can talk about your needs and kind of where you want this placed and for whom, and we can have that discussion if you would like.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
You're welcome. So moving forward, we work a lot with the Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. They're an amazing partner of ours. They're under our College of Business. They also help with mentorship and guidance for students, and they have an entrepreneurial boot camp. That boot camp is 8 weeks long. It runs 3 times a year, and it's also at a low cost, and it's basically at will. So there's no homework, but if you don't do anything, then you don't get anything out of it. And that's ran by our Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. They also host our business plan competition. That is open only to FAU students. One caveat that they started this year, which I don't know if it will be the same next year, is if you have an FAU student and another student from another university, then you're eligible. So I saw a couple of teams, actually. One team had a UCF student and an FAU student. Another team had an FIU student and an FAU student, and they competed in this business pitch competition, and the cash prizes go upwards to $10,000 for the first place. So keep that in mind. If you have any students who would like to collaborate with our students, this usually runs in the spring, is the main event. So the next phase here, I won't talk too much about this. We all have an Office of Technology Development at our institutions. This is just our support system for commercialization of intellectual property. which doesn't extend to external. So it's just for internal purposes. The next step in the process, in which I have my colleague here, Jessica, if she wants to jump in and state anything about FAU Tech Runway, I'll give you an overview. Tech Runway is a tech accelerator that's public-private. So we don't just serve our FAU students, faculty, and staff, but we also serve the community entrepreneurs. It is regional and does require some in-person entrepreneurial education monthly. So it probably would be best if you're within driving distance. We have had some people who are, from Port St. Lucie and then drive to Boca. But that is a commitment that the entrepreneur can make. So we have the venture class programs that run 2 cycles a year. We used to run 1, but then we realized that we're able to service more, even though we're a small team. So now we run 2 cycles a year. And after the applications are scored and reviewed by our mentors and our business mentors, and let's say they are accepted, they start into the prerequisite programs if they have not already done them. So that is a part of the Tech Runway program, whether it's the market validation workshop, whether it's the NSF I-Core or the Entrepreneurs Bootcamp. We cater and decide where's this entrepreneur in his or her journey and what would be of best value to them when first starting out. Do they need a little bit more of the business basics? That's the case, the boot camp would be the best choice. Do they just need to validate something? Then they could go to the workshop. So we cater their journey in the beginning, and then they have the monthly entrepreneurial education, which we call the Entrepreneurs Exchange. There's opportunities for networking and events. A lot of time we get discounts to fun events like Emerge and other the Synapse. So there's a lot of great ways that they can connect with other entrepreneurs. We have co-working space, not just in the Boca campus, but also in a Boynton Beach City Hall. We have an innovation space. So we work that out with the city to also receive that co-working space with our entrepreneurs who are part of this program. You also have received introductions to early stage capital. And I already mentioned the co-working grants. Here's another touch point where we talk about SBIRs and STTRs. Some of our startups would like to connect with faculty, so we kind of make those introductions as well. And then we have our partner with the Small Business Development Center that has a consultant that can then meet with them, as well as the resources that we have on this call to see how we can help them develop that SBIR and what steps to take. So from that point on, now they're ready to talk with the Small Business Development Center and get more of that technical expertise with government contracting, potential markets, imports, exports. They have consultants that are experts in different areas. And my colleague here, Sandra, is also, she does a great job as our regional leader for this. So we collaborate a lot with our small businesses and those who are going and they're ready to get to the next level. Okay, I think I made it in time. So with that, there's some information here. There's a QR code that will take you to the overall innovation and business development page that incorporates all of the programs that I listed today. So that's the one-stop shop landing page. I encourage you to request info so that we can keep in contact with you from that page. And then you can indicate which programs are of interest so that we can follow up one-on-one to see what your needs are or what your concerns are. So any further questions?
I think we had a question from Silvio. You put in the chat. Are you able to unmute and ask that? He might not be in the spot. So he's asking about examples of, if you see in the chat there, examples of public-private partnerships or how transfer can be leveraged and incubated within FAU. So I'm not sure if that's examples of successful tech transfer partnerships at FAU or something else, but.
I'm sorry, I was reviewing the chat at the same time. I can't multitask. So what was the what was the question?
So are there any examples of public-private partnerships or how tech transfer can be leveraged and incubated within a FAU? So maybe ways to connect with the tech transfer group within FAU and kind of what could that look like?
That's a great question. So our tech transfer typically services our faculty and our staff and our students. However, let's say an entrepreneur, an early stage startup is wanting to create that collaboration, which has happened before, and they're going to contribute a certain percentage on this innovation. they would have to disclose that then with our office, and then they could lay out with the faculty researcher and the student, what percentage contributions they have and see from there. And then our office will assess it with a third party and see if they want to, go after filing the cost for a provisional patent, or if they want to waive it back to the founders. So that would be the only way really to connect to our Office of Tech Development if you're external, is you would have to collaborate on an innovation that's novel, new, and an improved method in order to file that invention disclosure. I hope that answered the question.
I think, Sylvia, if there's something else, if I misrepresented the question, feel free to unmute and ask. But not. So I don't think so. Put more questions in the chat or unmute, raise your hand if you have something. While we're waiting to see if anyone has any other questions. I have a question for you, Regina. What's the incubator of kind of companies that have started as students and kind of moved up through the process of students in I-Corps, leveraging those programs, and now they're in the incubator? How does that work, and kind of what's the percentage of that versus outside companies coming in to work with you?
Jessica, I'm going to have you think about this question too, if you've got the stat on hand. So historically, and Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 3 tracks. So we have the student track, we have the faculty staff track, and we have the external community track. So of that, I would say it would safe to be a third of the ones that come into Tech Runway are the ones who also did I-Corps and WAVE and have student innovations. The past couple of years, we actually realized there's so much value to the student side because they're younger, they're less risk averse. So we want to get in front of them as quickly as possible and foster that entrepreneurial mindset to get them to the next level. So we've seen an increase actually in our student participation. We always have community entrepreneurs who by word of mouth are referred to the Tech Accelerator as well. But to give you an idea, it's about a third that go through the process that continue into the Tech Runway program.
Okay, excellent.
I'll jump in really quick. I just want to add to that. Regina is correct. This is Jessica, FAU Tech Runway. Hi, everyone. Is something that she mentioned the tracks. She mentioned, we have different directions based on if they're coming into the incubator accelerator, where they're at. We've created and expanded those because of the students and the faculty. The majority of community members who come and apply to be a part of our accelerator, our incubator accelerator, they're a little further along already. They probably have some ideas. They might be already professionals in the working world. They just kind of come in a little further along, a little more, a little further, a little more vetted, a little more put together. Let me say it that way. When you have students and faculty, they're learning from Regina, they're learning from our colleagues. Ooh, I have an idea and I can turn this into maybe a business. I can create something from it. So we're finding more students and more faculty are starting to come through the pipeline because we're able to, as she mentioned, input them anywhere in our pipeline. So if they come in with an idea, Regina, WAVE, let's get their toes wet, let's support them, let's just get them a little excited without overwhelming them with business plans and financials and pitches and whatnot. Then you have the students or faculty that are a little further along and maybe they'll kind of skip a step because they're ready to get moving. So right now it is about a third. But as we continue to see the demand, we might explore adding, instead of 2 cycles a year, 3 cycles a year. We might explore doing only a student-centric or faculty-centric based on what their needs are. So having the pipeline and the support of like the Regina, the SBDC led by Dr. Ruiz and others internally, we have a lot of support, we have a lot of resources, and we all are working together really well, that if we need to expand or add something, it's not just me, it's, hey team, hey group, hey collaborators, how can we do this without adding a ton of work to our plates or increasing our overhead? So yeah, I don't know if that helps, but it just kind of, I want to point out that our students are getting more engaged, but it's also because we've added the tracks to support them better.
Excellent, very helpful. So I don't think we have any other questions in the chat right now, but I'll ask if Regina and Jessica hang out in the chat. If anyone
Yeah.
thinks of, feel free to put them in there as we go, and we'll keep the chat active as we move forward. So with that, I'll let the other Jessica on the line, Jessica, you can start sharing your screen. So happy to have her from, I always am going to miss it, but the National Institute for Neurological Disorders and Stroke, talking about some of the resources and the SBIR program. So Jessica, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Jack. So yeah, I am a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow, and I am within NINDS Small Business Program. And today I'm just going to give you an overview of a little bit about NIH when it comes to grants, and then also a little bit more information about the NINDS mission and portfolio. I'll go over our application process and criteria, talk to you a bit about how our budget limits are a little bit different than others. They're much higher. And then at the end, I'll talk to you about 2 first-time applicant assistance programs that might benefit some of the companies that you represent. So I'm sure you guys already know, right? But NIH, the National Institutes of Health, comprises 27 institutes. 24 of them have small business programs, making us the largest public funder of biomedical research in the world. And we have congressionally mandated set-aside funding. So the goals are to foster and encourage participation by underrepresented persons in technology innovation, stimulate technology innovation, increase private sector commercialization of innovations, and use small businesses to meet the federal research development need. And so with SBIR and STTRs, we have $1.2 billion in non-dilutive annual funds that come from the NIH, making us the largest funding source for early stage life sciences in the United States. And so this is big because we really want to make sure that companies, like one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to all of you is to make sure that you're letting your companies know that the NIH is here and we want to be seed funders in the technologies that are being developed across Florida. So why seek a grant from NIH? Well, of course, right? Non-dilutive funding. The capital doesn't require you to give up any equity in your company. It's also not a loan. You get accessibility. So it provides recognition, verification, and visibility. Oftentimes we'll have investors reach out to us and say, hey, we're interested in the companies who didn't get funded because they've already been vetted. So, can we talk to them? Also, future capital. Awardees can leverage to attract other funding sources. It's very common for venture capitalists to then say, if you've already gone through NIH, again, you've been de-risked, so we're kind of interested in you. Property rights goes along with the non-dilutive funding. You retain your intellectual property rights. And then lastly, technical assistance. So through the seed office, which oversees all of the small businesses, when you have a small business grant at NIH, at any of the institutes, you then have access to technical assistance where they provide assistance with regulatory issues and more. And actually within NINDS, we have our own business consultant who will be able to provide you with, I think, 10 to 20 hours of direct contact to support your business and whatever needs they may have. Oftentimes, companies go to use our business consultant if they're, need to practice doing pitch competitions for maybe bio or resi, or if they need help with getting their executive summary together. However you need, whatever type of support the company needs, we have a business consultant who is dedicated to you. So the NINDS mission is to seek fundamental knowledge about the brain and nervous system and use that knowledge to reduce the burden of neurological disease for all people. And our mission space encompasses pain, stroke, epilepsy, spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, neurogenic and neurodegenerative disorders. And our portfolio is vast. We cover therapeutics, devices, biomarkers, biologics, and there's also a broad range of translational research and development activities, ranging from drug discovery, preclinical validation, all the way up to early stage clinical trials. Now, I'm sure you all are familiar with this in the different phases, but would be remiss if I didn't at least go over it, right? So within NIH and NINDS, we have these several small business programs. So of course we have phase 1, which is for feasibility, technical merit, commercial potential of your research project. Now, here's the thing. Even though preliminary data is not required for phase 1, right now things have become so competitive that almost every phase 1 award that gets awarded has some level of preliminary data. So I would encourage you to let your companies know that if they're going into a phase 1, to have some level of preliminary data when applying. And then you have phase 2. It lets you continue your research and development from phase 1. And you must do a phase 1 to apply for a phase 2. And once you reach your phase 1 milestones, you can apply for a phase 2. Now with that, I'll jump down to where it says direct to phase 2 SBIR only. Companies do not need to go through the NIH phase 1 award in order to apply for a phase 2. We have companies that may have, completed their feasibility and technical merit through a phase 1 award with NSF, and now they want to use that preliminary data and come in with a phase 2, which would be the direct to phase 2 option. We also have fast track, and this is where companies can submit a phase 1 and phase 2 application at the same time for review. Now, this is going to take a lot of work, but many companies are up for the task, where you're going to need to be able to provide your commercialization potential and your plan at the same exact time. Then we have the phase 2B, where NINDS offers 2B awards for phase 2 projects that require extraordinary time and effort beyond the standard phase 2 period of 2 years. Oftentimes, this may be those who are completing clinical trials. And then we have the CRP program, Commercialization Readiness Pilot Program, which provides phase 2 and phase 2B small businesses technical assistance funding for late stage development. So within NIH, there are 3 funding cycles: September 5th, which many companies are gearing up for right now, January 5th, and April 5th. And the entire process between submission to award can be about 9 months or so, and this is the breakdown. So when you submit for the omnibus, you are submitting to a pool of institutes who are participating. So once the company submits their application, there's about 2 weeks where applications get sorted. Companies are able to select up to 3 institutes that they believe their technology is best suitable for, but it also is on the side of the scientific review office for them to match that application to the appropriate institute. And so that takes about 2 weeks. Once you're assigned, you go into your scientific review, and that can take about 3 months. Our program staff, like for example, myself, we sit in on those meetings, we take notes just so that we're able to provide a little bit more context without breaking any confidentiality for our companies when we go over our summary statement reviews. Well, at NINDS, once you finish your scientific review, then you have council review. So anything that wasn't picked up in the scientific review will be picked up in council by program staff or by our own neuroscientists. So we do a deeper dive into the company at that point, and sometimes we're able to pick up on things that the reviewers just wouldn't have known. So for example, in this last round, we had an SBIR mill where they had received about $400 million in federal funding across NIH, NSF, DOD, but had not actually commercialized any of that technology. And so the reviewers scored it high, but they wouldn't have known that these are companies that are able to just, do really well with grant writing, but have no intention to actually commercialize their technologies. And then after the council review, it can take another 3 months or so before we can get to award. So this is just that breakdown, and kind of also to kind of hamper expectations for companies who think it might be a quick turnaround. So the review criteria is really similar to a research award, right? You have your significance. Does the product address significant problems and have a commercial potential? You have your approach. Are the design and methods well developed and appropriate? Innovation. How novel is the technology, product, and the approaches proposed to test feasibility? Your investigators. Does the team have the appropriate training and expertise to complete the project? And environment. Does the scientific environment contribute to the probability of success? And this last one, 6, this is where we're a little bit different. Commercialization. Does the company's business strategy have a high potential for success? So again, in a phase 1, we want to see commercialization potential. In the phase 2, you're going to have more real estate where you can then write to your commercialization plan. And at NINDS, we focus a lot on rigor and reproducibility. So I encourage your companies to focus on the rigor of the prior research, describe the strengths and weaknesses of the prior research that should be standing out even in the specific aims. Scientific rigor, your design. Make sure that you're applying a robust and unbiased experimental design, methodology, analysis, interpretation, and reporting of results. We also focus on sex as a biological variable, especially with our animal model studies. And then authentication. How are you showing the reagents can do what you're saying it can, include cell lines, specialty chemicals, antibodies, and other biologics when necessary? So here are some tips for the commercialization plan, some pointers, right? Now, when it comes to a phase 1, you have about 1 to 2 pages where you can actually write to this, and some companies say we don't have enough space, and that's true. We're not looking for you to give us everything, but companies, reviewers and investors, right? They want a little bit of a taste to know what's to come. So, even if it's 1 to 2 pages, or you have your 6 to 8, we want you to speak to the value of the product. Talk about the commercial and societal benefits of this technology, the company overview, product lines that show successful market implementation. Then go into, your market, customer, and competition. Do you know your market? Have you identified the customer bases and know your competition? And again, we come back to intellectual property protection. You want to list out any current patents and describe how the company plans to protect IP. Oftentimes for new companies, this is a new area for them that they have not, placed much thought into. So it's important that they start thinking early about their plan for IP protection. And then you have the financial plan, letters of commitment of funding, and especially letters of support for the project. Now, there isn't a limit on how many letters of support you should have, but I will say, the more the merrier, especially if it's people who can really speak to the technology and their relationship with the company. And then, of course, even for the letter of commitment of funding, and sorry, even back to the project, it could be patients, it could be hospitals, it could be pharmaceutical companies, you can do surveys. So we really want to make sure that companies are making sure to have letters of commitment of funding. If you've spoken to any investors who would be interested if the technology, reached a level of validation, that they would be one of the customers. And then lastly, production and marketing plan. Talk about the product, talk about the place, the promotion, and most importantly, the price, right? If NINDS, if we're focused on improving the lives of all patients with neurological disease, but your price is astronomical, how is it actually going to be able to do so? So we weigh all these things into consideration. And now our budget limits. This is what the companies really care about. So we're able to go above the standard, 300,000, 1.5 million in the phase 2 set by the SBA, because we have SBA approved waivers. So for phase 1, we can go as high as 700,000 with a max of 500K in 1 year for up to 2 years. And then in phase 2, we can go up to 3 million total with 1.5 in 1 year for up to 3 years. And so here are some of the waiver topics. Now, our program staff, we cannot pre-approve you for a waiver topic. Your companies would see this, say, hey, well, I am doing in vivo animal testing. And then from there, you write your application, and on the back end, it gets reviewed. What I would say, though, if your companies are thinking about or believe that their technology should have an SBA waiver, that they reach out to us. Let's talk. Let's make sure we can, at least without giving you the official approval, kind of, see what your technology is and kind of direct you in, in the best direction. But if your companies are doing in vivo animal testing, drug and biologics, preclinical discovery, device preclinical discovery, clinical testing of therapeutics, in vivo animal testing, or research that requires special facilities to contain hazardous or infectious materials, or the development and validation of biomarkers and technologies and approaches for measuring them, most likely it's going to fall within this waiver topic. So now I'm going to talk to you about 2 programs. The first is called the Applicant Assistance Program. This one, so there's a deadline. The deadline for this is next week, Monday. May 22nd is a deadline. And what it is a free application preparation assistance program through the NIH and also a consulting group, Eva Garland. It's 10 weeks in length, all virtual, and it's going to provide the company with one-on-one coaching for companies with great technology but little NIH experience. So if you have a company that is interested in applying for the September 5th deadline, this is a great opportunity for them to get some one-on-one support on how to write a phase 1 award. An even better company would be if you have anyone within your portfolio who maybe is looking to resubmit, has applied in the past and needs to do some tweaking, coming in with a full application where the coaches can help you revamp it to resubmit would probably be the best, because these 10 weeks are going to fly by. So AAP provides application preparation, support, and review, but they do not support when it comes to the science. So it'd be good if your FAST program, or even within your incubator, if there was additional support that they could get. That way they can complement each other. The one-on-one coaching, Eva Garland, they'll provide specific aims, page review, and also provide you with advice. Another benefit of going through AAP is you get access to your program officers with a little bit more, with speedier time. So I'm the program officer for AAP, but you also have your program officer just over your entire application. So when we know we have AAP applicants, we'll make sure that we're meeting with them earlier than we probably would other companies, because we know that you're on a time constraint. But then also, if you need additional support from us, then we'll make the time for you. So AAP they do not provide grant writing, research plan development, or small business registration. So it's important that the company is able to kind of do some of the things that are going to be necessary to submit the application, but you have Eva Garland there to support you weekly. And then, of course, as I mentioned, they have a little bit quicker access to us. Now, there's this new program that is being hosted by the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities. I learned about it Friday and then yesterday. So there's a lot going on in this page, but really what I want you to focus in on is the contact information, because if this is of interest to you, I would highly recommend that you send an email to learn more. And this is basically NIMHD, so the National Institute for Minority Health and Health Disparities, they have developed their own AAP program with a focus on health disparities. But this is open to all institutes. So it doesn't have to be that you are only applying to NIMHD. So let's say you have a company who has a technology that would be great for the National Institute on Aging that also has a health disparity component. They could apply to this program, get the assistance, very similar to AAP, from NIMHD, who has another consulting group that they're using. And then that company would be able to apply through the omnibus to NIA. So it's an additional support mechanism for companies who are first-time applicants or resubmitting for a phase 1, direct to phase 2, or fast tracked. And I've also gotten word that if you have any academic faculty who are thinking about going into submitting an SBIR, and they're very attuned to the health disparity space, they're also encouraged to apply as well. And lastly, I would say, even though it says here Friday, June 2nd as the deadline, I have gotten word that that application deadline is fluid. And so if you have companies that make it after the June 2nd deadline, that's okay as well. But this is all new things that are coming down the pipe. So I would highly recommend that you use any information that you see here on the screen. The slides will be provided to you as well. So you can always refer back to that. And then lastly, I offer office hours once a month. It's on the second Thursday of each month from 1 to 2. This is a great opportunity for any of your companies who are just needing to get an answer, or get an answer to a question really quickly. Because when you're sending out emails, especially to us in the federal government, things get lost or just pushed down. So it's just a great place for companies who might be thinking about learning a little bit more about the broadness of SBIR, STTR, and just need a human to speak to very quickly. So this is our team. Everyone within our office is more than willing to support and help in any way. And if you have any questions, I'll certainly take them now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for that. That's amazing that you have office hours. And a couple of questions I had for the timeline. I think it stated every September it opens up for phase 1. Is that correct?
So it's September 5th, April 5th, and January 5th are the
Okay.
deadlines.
And then would you say, and I mean, I guess you can't really quote this, but the strongest applicants are the ones that have the best, well thought out commercialization strategy?
That it's helpful. That's helpful. I would say for phase 1, the strongest applicants are the ones that have a bit of preliminary data, even if it's a little bit, to kind of show that you've tested this before and you know what you're getting yourself into. And that's not to say that you couldn't apply and get funded without it, because we do have companies that do, but I would say majority of the time they have some level. The other thing, I would say the most successful companies are also those who have a strong team. So sometimes we deal with a lot of PIs who have egos. And what happens
No.
is, you know, they want to remain, they want to be the CEO, and sometimes they're better off being the CSO, the scientist, you know, the chief scientific officer. And there may be someone else within that team who has spun out companies, who has just done a lot of work in that space, who might be a better face for the company for whatever reason. And so just supporting companies with understanding, you know, how you're going to interpret the review, because sometimes it's just that the team just wasn't compelling enough. And oftentimes, if you can change around who you have, bring in more people with expertise within a particular area, and making sure that you have people who are strong in the commercialization space, even if it's not you. But, you know, we want to back the company and not the person.
Thank you.
Anybody? I have a couple questions. If anybody else does, feel free to unmute and ask them.
Quick question: is there a high-level priority within the large spectrum of treatments that you're looking for that you would is available somewhere to kind of look at?
Within NINDS, we do not have any major priorities. However, I will say with other institutes, there are. I can't speak to what those are specifically, but I would say that on each institute's small business page, they may direct to saying, you know, that they're very much interested in a particular space. One that comes to mind is National Institute on Aging. I think they have a couple of priorities. I would say for us, though, our major priority are new companies, right? We do want to fund companies that have not been funded before. Of course, we have an interest in underrepresented companies and women-owned businesses. Now, we cannot target these, but of course, these are businesses of interest for the Institute, and I would say across NIH.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So I have a question, and we'll see if we can prompt one more. But for the applicant assistance program, I know you said the applications are due on Monday. How much detail is required? What's required to submit?
Great question. Yeah, so you're not submitting like a phase 1, so don't worry about that. It's almost as though you're submitting a specific aims page. So we want to see that you have a history of the background of the technology, that you can at least break down some of your aims. You know, what are you planning to do? What are going to be your milestones? And some of them have character limitations. So in the slides, and I'll also put it in the chat, I'll put the website for you. So if anyone wants to just briefly look, we just want to see, do you have an understanding of your technology and what's already on the market? But it's not that heavy. The other thing I'll say is we typically have more slots than we do applicants. So we don't normally get enough people to apply, or they find out about it too late. That's why I'm trying to push this as much as possible. Another benefit is, let's say, for example, you have a company, they do really well, and the National Institute on Aging just doesn't have any more slots available. It is common for us, you know, for institutes that have slots available to just pay for that company. So if I have any openings, technology is great, we'll just go ahead and, you know, pay for Bob Reed's company to go through the program, even though it's not within our mission space.
Excellent. Great. I'll do we going once, going twice. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute now. And if not, you can put them in the chat for the last 10 minutes or so. Okay. So thank you, Jessica. I appreciate. I see you put the link in the chat there, and I'll share. I'm going to put a link right now that has the slides from both of our presenters, so that way you can access the links and the slides before we send out the recording with kind of all the information. So you'll have all that at your fingertips. I also have a couple. Let's see if I can share my screen. Couple of quick announcements or resources we wanted to share before we wrap up. Again, feel free to use the chat, and we'll have a couple minutes at the end. If anybody on the line has any announcements, events, anything coming up that you would like to share, please, we'll have a couple minutes at the end for that. So first, I'll share a couple of the upcoming FL Fast training virtual webinars that we have coming up. So we have one focused on SBIR STTR budgets on June 14th, one on the kind of the general ABCs of SBIR STTR in September, and then in August, this is only for this audience, is train the trainers. So this is a session focused on how do you work with your clients and help them move through the SBIR STTR process. So that's going to be on August 23rd, and you can register for all those. There's a link that I just posted that you can find a link to register for all three of these. They're all free, and they will all be recorded as well. So that's what we have coming up over the next couple months. I'm going to run through these very quickly, but every link I'm sharing here is in, I just put in the chat, there's a document that has all of these links so you can read more, but just a couple things to highlight for your programs. This week right now is America's Seed Fund Week through the SBA. So it's basically a week-long virtual event promoting and connecting with the SBIR STTR program. Every day this week from 2 to 5, there are virtual events. It's free, you can register. We will be hosting a community event with the SBA as part of this event on the 18th. So we're going to have a panel discussion with a couple SBIR STTR awardees sharing how they use the program to move their companies forward. And so you can register for the whole event or for our webinar, but this is America's Seed Fund Week. June 19th through 20th is the Tech Connect and SBIR STTR conference in Washington, D.C. So if you're interested in connecting with program managers and learning more, this is a great place to do that. We will have a couple folks there as well. Here in Central Florida in Orlando, there's an SBIR STTR Partnership Day on June 23rd. So they're going to showcase a number of Phase 2, Phase 3 awardees, primarily from DoD. So if you want to connect or learn more with companies who have received DoD SBIR funding, you can attend this event. This is also free, I believe. In August in Fort Lauderdale is the Small Business Success Summit hosted by the SBDC. So a couple of days of panels and sessions all about supporting entrepreneurs and businesses that you can attend as well. Moving on to some funding announcements and kind of other resources for you and for your programs. Just this, maybe I think it was Monday this week, the EDA announced their Tech Hubs program. So there's a little bit of detail here. Those proposals are due August 15th. They do have a webinar on Thursday to learn more about this. A couple quick notes. You have to apply. You have to have a consortium of multiple organizations and types of organizations to apply. And the geography when they talk about a Tech Hub is a metropolitan statistical area or an MSA. So think kind of smaller, not statewide areas. So, but that was just released, and this funding will be available or is available now to submit to. EDA also has the STEM Talent Challenge for STEM training programs, and this funds up to $500,000 for implementation. These are due June 12th, so not a ton of time. And a one-to-one match is required for these. One more grant, the NASDAQ Foundation grant, the NASDAQ Quarterly Community Grant. There are a couple areas of focus that you can see here, but one of those is on programs that support women and underrepresented minority business owners and communities. And so this is a quarterly program. The average fund, the average award is around $75,000, and you need to be a 501c3 to apply. Not so much a grant, but the Florida GrowFL companies to watch. If you have any companies that you want to nominate who fit some of the criteria on the screen here that you'll see in the slides. This is a statewide award effort and one of the kind of the prominent awards for stage 2. So feel free to nominate companies for that. We heard last month from Ocean Exchange, these calls for solutions are now open for your companies working in the energy space. So they have 3 different $100,000 awards, all non-dilutive capital. And those proposals are due August 17th. This was just released in the last couple of days, I believe. The Department of Energy has a grant for energy improvement in rural or remote areas. And so this is investment technical assistance for kind of specific systems or new, sorry, I am losing my words. So you can see the 3 goals here, but these are structures or for systems for economic resilience, energy resilience, awards between 500,000 to 5 million. These are due in July. And then last 2 resources that I wanted to share. This is just posted by the SBA. They have agency-specific resources for pretty much every agency. They have one-pagers, reverse pitch decks, videos describing each agency. You can see that on the SBA's America Seed Fund site. And then lastly, I believe this is the last one we have, the USF team that's part of it FAST put together a list of agency-specific pre-application resources. I believe we do have the applicant assistance program on there, so that's great. So you can see a link on their page for a bunch of pre-application resources for SBIR STTR phase 1. So you're here, but if you invite any colleagues to join this call or this network as we move forward, and our next call will be June 20th. I ran through those really quickly, but I wanted to share them all. You'll see all the links. I will put, Sandra, I will put a link in the chat to the Train the Trainer. I'll make sure that is in there before we sign on. So, and there's a couple other things in there. Florida Venture Forum Emerging Tech Showcase is happening with applications to May 29th. And Jessica, thank you. So if we have a couple minutes left, I will stop sharing. If anyone else has events, announcements that you'd like to share, feel free. You'll see a recording and slides this week from everything we talked about today. Like I ran a marathon, so. No one has any announcements. Sandra, I will put that link to the Train the Trainer in the chat before we sign off. But with that, thank you, everybody. I appreciate all the time from our speakers, Regina, the 2 Jessicas. Thank you so much. It was great and lots of great information. Thanks so much.